My lawyer texted me, "Call me immediately." He told me the terrible truth about my son. My name is Alice Williams, and 3 days ago at exactly 7:03 a.m., my phone rang while I was getting ready for the biggest business meeting of my career. David Martinez, my family lawyer for over 10 years, never calls unless something's seriously wrong. His voice was shaking when I picked up. "Alice, I need you to sit down. This is about Jake, and what I'm about to tell you will change everything." Welcome back to Auntie Dorothy's Stories. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Your support truly encourages me to continue sharing these incredible tales with you. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from my sweethearts around the world. I'm standing in my bathroom, mascara wand in hand, 48 years old, successful real estate business owner who built everything from nothing. After my husband died serving our country, I thought I had life figured out. I thought I knew my son better than anyone in this world. "David, you're scaring me. What's wrong with my son?" The silence on the other end lasted forever. Then came the words that shattered my world completely. "3 families came to my office yesterday, Alice. They're accusing Jake of inappropriate conduct with their children. Sexual misconduct. The evidence they brought, it's overwhelming." My legs gave out. I sank onto my bathroom floor, phone pressed to my ear, as my perfect world crumbled around me. This had to be some terrible mistake, some sick joke, some case of mistaken identity. That's impossible. Jake's an elementary school teacher, David. He loves children. He dedicated his entire life to helping kids. There has to be some mistake. "Alice, listen to me carefully. This isn't just wild accusations from angry parents. They have text messages, inappropriate photos, witness statements from multiple children, and there's something else. Something about Jake's dark past that even you don't know. Let me paint you a picture of the Jake I thought I knew. The son I was so proud of. My beautiful 26-year-old boy, who was supposed to be my greatest achievement in life. After his father died when Jake was just 12, it became just the two of us against the world. I worked 3 jobs, sacrificed everything, put him through college, watched him become this beloved elementary school teacher that parents requested specifically for their children. Just last month, he got engaged to Emma, this sweet, innocent girl who looked at him like he hung the moon. Every Sunday without fail, Jake would show up at my house with flowers. "Sorry I'm late, Mama. You know how Atlanta traffic is." He'd kiss my cheek and spend hours telling me about his students, sharing every detail of his life, his dreams, his future plans with Emma. We were best friends, closer than any mother and son I'd ever seen. Other mothers envied our relationship. Jake told me everything, or so I believed with every fiber of my being. "David, you don't understand. Jake tells me everything about his life. We share everything. We have no secrets between us. Whatever this is, you're completely wrong about my son." But David's voice carried this weight I'd never heard before. This gravitas that made my blood run cold. "Alice, I've been practicing family law for 25 years. I've seen a lot of disturbing cases, but the calculated pattern of behavior, the sophisticated methods he used to groom these families, the way he systematically gained their complete trust, this isn't his first time doing this." The bathroom tiles felt ice cold against my legs. My successful, caring, gentle son who dedicated his entire life to teaching and protecting children. "What do you mean, not his first time?" "David, what are you saying about my son?" "I've been making phone calls all morning, Alice, pulling strings, calling in favors. Jake has sealed juvenile records that go back years. Multiple incidents that were systematically covered up when he was a teenager. Your husband used his military connections and influence to make serious problems disappear." The betrayal hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Not just betrayal by Jake, but by my deceased husband, who I'd loved and mourned for 14 years. The man who took these horrific secrets to his grave, leaving me to raise a monster without any warning, without any knowledge of what he was capable of. My own husband knew Jake was dangerous and never told me. He let me raise a predator and said nothing. "Alice, there's more. I need you to come to my office immediately. The police want to interview you as part of their investigation, and there's something else you need to know." Emma called me this morning, completely hysterical. She wants to talk to you about disturbing things she's discovered about Jake. That phone call ended at 7:12 a.m. 9 minutes that destroyed 26 years of believing I knew my own son. 9 minutes that revealed the man I raised, the child I sacrificed everything for, was a calculating predator who had been living a double life right under my nose. Standing in that bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror, mascara streaking down my face, I realized I was about to face the most impossible choice any mother could imagine: protect my son and become complicit in his crimes, or choose justice and destroy my own family forever. If this shocking family secret revelation is already gripping you, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will leave you completely speechless. This mother's journey into her worst nightmare is just beginning. What would your first instinct be if you received a devastating call like this about your own child? Would you believe it immediately or deny it? Let me know in the comments below. The drive to David's law office felt like traveling through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every red light, every turn, brought me closer to a truth I desperately didn't want to face. But nothing could have prepared me for what David showed me when I walked into his conference room. Alice, before we start, I need you to understand that what I'm about to show you will be disturbing. These are serious criminal allegations against your son. David spread evidence across his mahogany conference table like pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to solve. Screenshots of text messages from Jake's personal phone number to children as young as 7 years old. Messages that made my stomach turn, inappropriate communications that no adult should ever send to a child. These messages were found on Timothy Chen's phone by his parents. The boy is 8 years old, Alice, 8. The messages were calculated, manipulative, designed to groom and confuse young minds. Jake had been systematically building inappropriate relationships with his students, crossing every boundary that should exist between teacher and child. But I would have known David. A mother always knows when something's wrong with her child. I raised him from birth. I would have seen signs of this sickness. The guilt was already eating me alive like acid in my veins. How could I have missed this? How could I have been so blind to my own son's monstrous behavior? Then, David pulled out his laptop and showed me school security footage that made my world collapse completely. There was Jake, clear as day, staying after hours with individual students when he should have been home. Video evidence of him being alone with children in empty classrooms, in storage rooms, in areas where no teacher should ever take a student. The school principal noticed the pattern 3 weeks ago, but didn't want to believe it. Jake was their most popular teacher, Alice. Parents specifically requested him for their children. That's when the real horror hit me. Parents had trusted Jake with their most precious possessions, their children. They had seen his charming smile, his dedication to education, his apparent love for kids, and they had handed their babies over to a predator. How many children, David? How many families are we talking about? So far, 7 children have come forward. But Alice, investigations like this, when one child finds the courage to speak up, others follow. There could be more victims we don't know about yet. 7 innocent children whose lives Jake had destroyed. 7 families whose trust he had shattered. 7 little souls who would carry his crimes with them forever. David's phone rang, interrupting my spiral into guilt and horror. That was Detective Rodriguez. She's on her way over to interview you. Alice, you need to understand. You're not a suspect, but your cooperation is crucial for protecting other potential victims. 20 minutes later, Detective Maria Rodriguez walked into that conference room, and I could see in her eyes that she'd seen too many cases like this. She sat across from me with the kind of gentle authority that comes from years of dealing with family trauma. Mrs. Williams, I know this is devastating for you. No mother should have to face accusations like this about their child. But I need to ask you some difficult questions about Jake's behavior over the years. For the next hour, Detective Rodriguez walked me through my son's entire life, looking for patterns I had missed, warning signs I had ignored, red flags I had dismissed as normal teenage behavior. Did Jake ever show unusual interest in spending time alone with younger children? Did he volunteer for activities that gave him unsupervised access to kids? Did you ever notice inappropriate materials on his computer or in his belongings? Each question felt like a knife twisting in my heart because the honest answer to so many of them was yes. Jake had always volunteered for youth programs at church. He had always been eager to babysit for neighbors. He had always been secretive about his computer, claiming he needed privacy for lesson planning. I thought he was just dedicated to his career. I thought his love for children was admirable, professional. How was I supposed to know it was something sick and twisted? Detective Rodriguez leaned forward with compassion in her eyes. Mrs. Williams, predators are masters of deception. They don't look like monsters. They look like the most trustworthy people in our communities. That's how they get access to victims. But her reassurance couldn't stop the guilt from consuming me. I was Jake's mother. If anyone should have protected those children from him, it should have been me. That's when David's office door burst open, and Emma stumbled in looking like she'd aged 10 years overnight. This vibrant, confident young woman, who was supposed to become my daughter-in-law, looked broken, traumatized, like she'd seen something that shattered her entire reality. "Mrs. Williams, I'm so sorry. I should have told someone sooner." But Jake made me think I was going crazy. This story is about to take an even darker turn. Make sure you're subscribed, because Emma's revelation will expose the true depth of Jake's deception and manipulation. What warning signs do you think parents should watch for? How can we better protect our children while still trusting the teachers and caregivers in their lives? Share your thoughts below. Emma collapsed into the chair next to me, shaking so violently I thought she might be having some kind of breakdown. This sweet, innocent girl who had been planning to marry my son, who had sat at my dinner table every Sunday, who had called me her future mother-in-law, looked absolutely destroyed. "Emma, honey, what's wrong? What happened?" She couldn't even look at me directly, staring down at her hands as she spoke. 3 weeks ago, I was cleaning Jake's apartment while he was at work. I wanted to surprise him by organizing his home office. That's when I found the hidden folder on his computer. My heart stopped beating. I knew whatever Emma was about to tell me would change everything forever. "What kind of folder, Emma?" "Pictures, Mrs. Williams. Hundreds of pictures of children. Not just any children, his students. Photos taken secretly during class, during recess, during after-school activities. Some of the pictures were focused on inappropriate parts of their bodies." The room started spinning around me. My son, the man I had raised to respect and protect children, had been secretly photographing them like prey. "But that's not the worst part," Emma continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I confronted Jake about what I'd found, he didn't deny it. Instead, he convinced me that I was the one with the problem." Emma finally looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "He told me I had a dirty mind for interpreting innocent photos in a sexual way. With that, he made me feel guilty for violating his privacy. He was so convincing, so manipulative, that I actually apologized to him for snooping. The manipulation was breathtaking in its sophistication. Jake had turned his victim into the perpetrator, making Emma question her own sanity rather than acknowledging his crimes. "Emma, that's called gaslighting. It's a form of psychological abuse. You have nothing to apologize for." But Emma wasn't finished destroying my world. "There's more, Mrs. Williams. After I found those photos, I started paying closer attention to Jake's behavior. I noticed he was drugging my drinks during our intimate moments." The words hit me like physical blows. My son wasn't just a predator of children, he was also sexually assaulting his own fiancée. I would have a glass of wine with dinner, nothing unusual, but then I'd feel extremely drowsy, confused, like I was losing time. In the morning, I'd have gaps in my memory, but Jake would tell me we'd had amazing intimate moments that I apparently couldn't remember. Emma pulled out her phone with trembling hands. "Last week, I pretended to drink the wine, but poured it out when Jake wasn't looking. I stayed awake and pretended to be unconscious. That's when I discovered he was recording everything." The full scope of Jake's crimes was becoming clear. He wasn't just a pedophile. He was a serial predator who violated anyone vulnerable enough to trust him. "He has videos of me, Mrs. Williams. hours of footage taken without my consent, without my knowledge. I realized he's been systematically drugging and assaulting me for months, maybe years. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to scream. I wanted to deny everything Emma was telling me. But the evidence was overwhelming. My son was a monster who had been living right under my nose, and I had been completely blind to his true nature. Emma, why didn't you go to the police immediately? Because Jake is a master manipulator, Mrs. Williams. He made me believe that if I ever accused him of anything, no one would believe me. He said I was emotionally unstable, that I had drinking problems, that people would think I was making things up for attention. The systematic destruction of Emma's confidence and self-trust was terrifying in its calculated cruelty. Jake had isolated her, made her dependent on his version of reality, stripped away her ability to trust her own perceptions. Detective Rodriguez leaned forward. Emma, you're incredibly brave for coming forward. Your testimony is crucial for protecting other victims and building a strong case against Jake. But Emma wasn't done revealing the depth of Jake's deception. There's something else. I found evidence that Jake has been doing this for years, long before we met. I discovered payment records, Mrs. Williams. Jake has been sending money to families, what look like settlement payments to keep people quiet. My deceased husband's military connections, covered up juvenile records, payment records to silence victims. The pattern was becoming clear. Jake had been a predator since he was a teenager, and powerful people had been helping him escape consequences for over a decade. How many victims, Emma? How many families has Jake destroyed? I don't know the exact number, but based on what I found, there have been multiple incidents in different cities, different schools. Jake would build a reputation as an amazing teacher, gain everyone's trust, abuse children, and then move on when things got too dangerous. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. My son wasn't just a predator. He was a sophisticated serial offender who had perfected his methods over years of practice. And somehow, I had been completely oblivious to the monster living in my house, eating at my table, accepting my love and support while he destroyed innocent lives. Detective Rodriguez's phone rang. That's my partner. He's at Jake's apartment with a search warrant. Mrs. Williams, we're going to need you to stay available for questioning. This investigation is just beginning. As Detective Rodriguez left to coordinate the search of my son's apartment, I sat in that conference room with Emma and David, surrounded by evidence of Jake's crimes, facing the most impossible choice any mother could imagine. Mrs. Williams, Emma said softly, I need you to know that I don't blame you for any of this, but those children, those innocent babies that Jake hurt, they need someone to fight for them. They need someone to choose their safety over family loyalty. The evidence is mounting, and this mother's world is completely shattered. Subscribe now because the confrontation between Alice and Jake is coming, and you won't believe how a predator reacts when his carefully constructed lies finally collapse. How do you think manipulation and gaslighting work to keep victims silent? What can we do as a society to help people recognize these tactics? Share your insights below. At 6:30 that evening, I was sitting in my living room with Detective Rodriguez and her partner, Detective Williams, waiting for my son to come home from school. The same living room where Jake and I had shared countless Sunday dinners, where he had proposed to Emma, where I had believed we were the perfect family. The house felt different now, contaminated by the knowledge of what Jake really was. Every family photo on the walls seemed like evidence of my blindness, my failure as a mother to protect innocent children from the monster I had raised. Mrs. Williams, when Jake arrives, we need you to stay calm and let us handle the situation. Don't try to warn him or give him time to destroy evidence. Can you do that? Could I betray my own son? Could I sit there and watch police officers arrest the child I had loved and sacrificed for 26 years? The answer was yes, because protecting innocent children mattered more than protecting a predator, even when that predator was my own flesh and blood. At exactly 7:15, I heard Jake's key in the front door. Mom, I'm home. Sorry I'm late. Had to stay after school for parent conferences. The irony was sickening. Jake walked into our living room with that same charming smile, that same confident demeanor, completely unaware that his carefully constructed world was about to collapse. "Mom, why do you look upset? And who are these people?" Detective Rodriguez stood up and showed her badge. "Jake Williams. I'm Detective Rodriguez. We need to talk to you about some serious allegations involving your conduct with students." For just a split second, I saw panic flash across Jake's face, but he recovered quickly, slipping into the manipulative charm that had fooled everyone for years. "Allegations? What kind of allegations? I don't understand what this is about." He looked directly at me with those innocent eyes that had convinced me he was incapable of harm. "Mom, what's going on? You know me better than anyone. Tell them there's been some kind of mistake." This was the moment of truth. This was where I chose between protecting my son and protecting his victims. This was where I decided what kind of person I really was. "Jake, sit down. We need to talk about the children you've been hurting." His mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "Mom, you can't seriously believe whatever lies these people have been telling you. I'm your son. I would never hurt children." The manipulation was immediate and sophisticated. Jake wasn't denying the allegations. He was attacking the credibility of his accusers while positioning himself as the victim of false accusations. "Jake, I've seen the evidence, the text messages, the photographs, the school security footage. I know what you've been doing to those innocent babies." That's when Jake switched tactics, becoming the wounded son betrayed by his mother. "How can you turn against your own child? After everything we've been through together? After how close we've always been? You're really going to choose strangers over your own flesh and blood?" The emotional manipulation was breathtaking. Even knowing what I knew, even seeing the evidence, part of me wanted to protect him, because that's what mothers do. We protect our children even when they don't deserve protection. Detective Williams pulled out a tablet and showed Jake screenshots of his text messages to children. "Jake, these messages came from your personal phone number. Can you explain why you were sending inappropriate communications to 8-year-old Timothy Chen?" Jake barely glanced at the evidence before launching into his defense. "Those messages are being taken out of context. I was trying to help Timothy with his reading skills. Sometimes kids need extra encouragement and personal attention." The lies flowed so smoothly, so convincingly. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed his explanations. This was how he had fooled parents, administrators, and me for so many years. "What about the photographs found on your computer, Jake? Can you explain why you have hundreds of images of your students taken without their knowledge or consent?" "Those are for creating personalized learning materials. Teachers often take photos of students for educational purposes. There's nothing inappropriate about documenting student progress." Jake had an answer for everything, a reasonable explanation that almost made sense if you didn't look too closely. But Detective Rodriguez had been investigating predators for years, and she knew how to corner them. "Jake, we also have testimony from your fiancée about videos you recorded without her consent. Can you explain those?" That's when Jake's carefully constructed facade finally cracked. "Emma is emotionally unstable. She has drinking problems and mental health issues. She's making things up because she's angry that I was trying to help her get treatment." He was throwing Emma under the bus, destroying her credibility to save himself. This was the real Jake, cold, calculating, willing to destroy anyone who threatened his freedom. "Jake, stop lying. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I've seen what you did to Emma. I've seen what you did to those children. Just tell the truth for once in your life." His mask completely fell away, revealing the predator underneath. "The truth? The truth is that you failed as a mother. You were so desperate to be loved that you never paid attention to who I really was. This is as much your fault as mine." Jake's true nature is finally being exposed, and his mother's world is completely destroyed. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe now to see how this confrontation ends and what choice Alice makes when faced with her son's complete lack of remorse. Have you ever encountered someone who seemed charming and trustworthy but turned out to be manipulative? How did you recognize the warning signs? Share your experience to help others. The next morning, after Jake was arrested and charged with multiple counts of child sexual abuse, I found myself sitting across from Detective Rodriguez in an interview room, officially giving my statement against my own son. Every word felt like a knife cutting through my heart. But I knew this was the only way to protect other children from becoming his victims. Mrs. Williams, I know this is incredibly difficult, but your cooperation is crucial. Mothers who choose to support the investigation rather than protect their children send a powerful message to other victims that they will be believed and supported. 2 days later, David arranged for me to meet with the families who had found the courage to come forward. Walking into that community center conference room was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. These were parents whose children had been violated by the man I raised, and I was about to face them, knowing I had failed to protect their babies. Sarah and Mike Patterson were the first to arrive. Their 7-year-old daughter, Emma, had been one of Jake's first victims at the school. Sarah looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in weeks, and Mike's hands were clenched into fists of barely controlled rage. Mrs. Williams, we want you to know that we don't blame you for what Jake did. But we need to understand how this happened. How did no one see the signs? Before I could answer, more families filed into the room. David and Linda Chen, whose 9-year-old son Tommy had stopped speaking after Jake's abuse. Robert and Maria Santos, whose 10-year-old daughter Sophia had developed severe anxiety and nightmares. Each family represented a child whose innocence had been stolen by my son. I am so deeply sorry, I began, my voice breaking. I know sorry doesn't fix what Jake did to your children, but I need you to know that I had no idea. If I had known, if I had seen any signs, I would have stopped him immediately. Linda Chen looked up with tears in her eyes. Tommy used to love school. He was this bright, curious little boy who couldn't wait to learn new things. After what your son did to him, Tommy won't even let male teachers help him with his homework. The impact on these children was devastating and long-lasting. These weren't just momentary crimes. Jake had fundamentally changed these kids' ability to trust, to feel safe, to believe in the goodness of adults who were supposed to protect them. Maria Santos spoke next. Sophia has nightmares every night. She wakes up screaming, and when we try to comfort her, she flinches away from us. Your son didn't just hurt our children, he destroyed their ability to feel safe in their own homes. The weight of their pain was crushing me, but I forced myself to listen to every word. These families deserve to be heard, to have their children's suffering acknowledged by someone from Jake's family. What can I do to help? I asked through my tears. How can I make any of this right? Sarah Patterson leaned forward. Help us make sure this never happens to other children. Use your voice as Jake's mother to speak out about warning signs, about how predators operate, about how they fool entire communities. That conversation changed my life forever. I realized that my role wasn't to mourn the loss of my son. It was to honor his victims by making sure their suffering led to protection for other children. The next week, I made the hardest decision of my life. I put my house up for sale, liquidated my business, and used every penny to fund therapy for Jake's victims and legal support for their families. My material possessions meant nothing compared to helping these children heal. 6 months later, Jake was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Even at his sentencing, he showed no remorse, no acknowledgement of his victim's pain, no acceptance of responsibility for the destruction he had caused. The last time I saw him was the day before his sentencing. He was sitting in the county jail visiting room in his orange jumpsuit, and for the first time I saw him clearly for who he really was. Not my beloved son, but a predator who had manipulated and deceived me for years. Was it worth it, Mom? Was destroying your only family worth helping strangers? My answer came without hesitation. Those weren't strangers, Jake. They were innocent children who deserved protection from predators like you. And you're right. I did destroy my family. I destroyed the fantasy family I thought we were to build something real based on truth and justice instead of lies and denial. You'll regret this decision for the rest of your life. You chose them over me. No, Jake. I chose protecting innocent children over protecting a child predator. I chose justice over blood loyalty. I chose truth over comfortable lies, and I would make the same choice again every single day. Today, 2 years later, I run a foundation called Mothers for Justice that helps families affected by trusted adult abuse. I speak at schools, parent groups, and community organizations about recognizing warning signs, supporting victims, and choosing courage over comfort when faced with impossible family situations. I lost my son, my home, my business, and my old life. But I gained something more valuable: the knowledge that I chose to stand with victims rather than perpetrators, that I used my voice to protect children rather than protect a predator. Emma has become like a daughter to me. She's getting therapy, rebuilding her life, and working with me to help other survivors of manipulation and abuse. Tommy Chen is slowly starting to speak again. Sophia Santos is having fewer nightmares. Emma Patterson is beginning to trust male teachers again. The healing is slow, but it's happening because brave families chose to speak up, and because a community chose to believe children over a charming predator. Sometimes the greatest love means letting justice prevail, even when it breaks your heart into a million pieces. Sometimes being a real mother means protecting all children, not just your own. Sometimes choosing truth over family loyalty is the most loving thing you can do. That's my story, how I learned the terrible truth about my son and made the hardest choice of my life. If you're a parent watching this, please remember that love doesn't mean blind loyalty. Real love means holding people accountable for their actions, even when it destroys everything you thought you knew about your family. If this story moved you, please subscribe and share it with other parents. These conversations save children's lives. Together, we can create communities where predators can't hide behind charm and manipulation. What do you think communities can do better to protect children while still supporting families in crisis? How can we balance believing victims with supporting families who are also traumatized by these revelations? Share your thoughts below. Your insights might help another family navigate this impossible situation.